July is the month that destroys more American lawns than any weather event, and the damage almost always traces back to the same avoidable mistakes. Right now, your cool season grass is under more biological pressure than at any other point in the calendar year. Soil surface temperatures across most of the country are pushing past 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and the grass plant responds to that kind of heat by deliberately throttling back its own growth. That is not a sign of a sick lawn. That is a survival response built into the plant's biology. But there is a clear and measurable difference between a lawn that is managing July heat effectively and one that is quietly accumulating damage that will not become obvious until August or September. The decisions you make this month determine which category your lawn falls into. This video covers every one of those decisions, in order, so your lawn holds its condition through the hottest weeks of the year and comes out of summer ready to recover fast in the fall. Everything I'm about to walk you through in this video is also laid out in full detail in my lawn care ebook, with the exact month-by-month schedule, watering charts, and troubleshooting steps for every season, not just July. If you want the complete system instead of having to remember all of this, the link to order it is right in the description below. Go ahead and grab it before we get started. Cool season grasses, which includes Kentucky bluegrass, tall fescue, fine fescue, and perennial ryegrass, grow most actively when soil temperature sits between 60 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit at a depth of 2 inches. That range is where root production accelerates, where the grass plant builds the dense crown structure that gives the lawn its durability, and where photosynthesis runs at full efficiency. Once soil temperatures at that 2-inch depth climb past 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which happens consistently across most of the northern and transitional United States every July, the plant's growth rate drops sharply. The grass is not dying. It is redirecting its energy budget away from producing new leaves and toward maintaining the crown and root system through the heat. Respiration rates rise as temperatures climb, which means the plant is burning more stored carbohydrates just to keep its basic functions running, while photosynthesis becomes less efficient at the same time. The visible result is that growth slows noticeably. The lawn may take on a slightly blue-green cast compared to its spring color, and during extended hot and dry stretches, many cool season lawns will move into semi-dormancy, meaning the blades turn tan or brown while the crown at the soil surface remains alive. Semi-dormancy is a normal, healthy, and reversible biological process. A well-established lawn can hold dormancy for 4 to 6 consecutive weeks, and recover completely once temperatures moderate and fall moisture arrives. The genuine threat is not the dormancy itself. The threat is adding avoidable stress on top of it through wrong mowing practices, unnecessary fertilizing, or poorly timed watering, because each of those mistakes pushes a plant that is already operating at the edge of its heat tolerance further past what it can manage, and that is where permanent crown damage occurs. Now, understanding the biology behind dormancy is one thing, knowing exactly when to back off and when to step in to protect that crown is another. That's the part most people get wrong, and it's exactly what I map out in detail in my ebook, with clear guidelines for every grass type so you're never guessing during a heat stretch. The link to order it is in the description if you want that full breakdown. Your mowing height in July is the single highest impact adjustment you can make without spending $1, and the direction you need to move it is higher than most homeowners have their mower set right now. Every additional half-inch of grass blade height creates measurable shade over the soil surface directly beneath it. That shade reduces soil surface temperature by several degrees, slows moisture evaporation between watering sessions, and blocks the light that weed seeds sitting on the soil surface require to germinate. For cool season lawns in July, the correct cutting height is between 3.5 and 4.5 inches. This is noticeably taller than a standard spring height, and the difference is entirely functional rather than cosmetic. At 3.5 to 4.5 inches, the grass maintains enough leaf surface to support photosynthesis at a useful rate, despite the reduced efficiency that comes with summer heat. The root zone stays several degrees cooler and holds moisture significantly longer between watering events, and the grass plant retains more of the carbohydrate reserves it needs to survive and recover from peak heat. Because growth slows in July, the interval between mowing sessions will naturally extend. Most cool season lawns in July need mowing no more than once a week, and during hot and dry stretches with minimal growth, skipping a mow entirely is the correct call. Cutting grass that is not actively growing adds mechanical stress with no benefit. The 1/3 rule remains in full effect this month and carries more weight than in any other season. Removing more than 1/3 of the current blade height in a single pass strips away photosynthetic area the plant cannot afford to lose while it is already conserving resources under heat stress. Keep your clippings on the lawn after each mowing session. The nitrogen and organic matter they return to the soil surface as they decompose matters throughout the season, and removing them exposes the soil surface to slightly more heat and moisture loss at precisely the time when you want to retain both. Fertilizing your cool season lawn in July is one of the most consistently damaging mistakes homeowners make during summer, and understanding the reason behind it makes the decision straightforward. Nitrogen, which is the primary driver of leaf growth in virtually all lawn fertilizers, pushes the grass plant into producing rapid new tissue. In July, with soil temperatures already high and the plant redirecting energy toward heat management, that forced growth produces soft and structurally weak leaf tissue. That tissue is more susceptible to heat damage, more vulnerable to drought stress, and more likely to develop fungal disease than grass that is allowed to grow at its natural reduced summer rate. A nitrogen application to a heat-stressed cool season lawn in July commonly results in fertilizer burn, increased disease incidence, and a lawn that enters August in visibly worse condition than if it had been left alone. There is an important distinction that applies to warm season lawns. Bermuda grass, zoysia grass, St. Augustine grass, and centipede grass are genetically calibrated for heat and are actively in their growth peak throughout July. If you are managing one of these grasses, a single light application of a balanced fertilizer in early to mid-July supports the growth phase appropriately. For everyone maintaining a cool season lawn, which covers most homeowners in the northern two-thirds of the country and across the transition zone, hold all fertilizer applications until early September. When soil temperatures drop back below 70 degrees Fahrenheit at the 2-inch depth, the grass will be ready to absorb and use nutrition productively, and a fall fertilizer application at that point delivers results that a July application simply cannot. Water management in July has a larger effect on whether your lawn survives summer in good condition than almost any other factor, and the most effective approach runs counter to what most people instinctively do. Watering a small amount every day or every other day keeps moisture concentrated in the top 2 to 3 inches of soil. In July, that zone is the hottest and most rapidly drying part of the soil profile, and roots that have trained themselves to stay shallow looking for reliably available surface moisture are sitting directly in the worst possible location during a heat event. Deep roots that extend 6 to 8 inches below the surface have access to cooler, more stable soil moisture that persists through hot and dry stretches much longer than surface moisture. The way you build deeper roots is by watering deeply and allowing the surface to dry out between sessions, which pushes roots downward in search of water. The target for established cool season lawns in July is 1 to 1.5 inches of water per week, delivered in 2 or 3 sessions rather than a small daily amount. Each session should wet the soil to a depth of 6 to 8 inches. Confirm this by pushing a screwdriver or probe into the soil after watering. It should slide through moist soil to at least 6 inches without significant resistance. If it stops earlier than that, run the system longer on your next session. Water in the early morning, ideally between 5 and 9 a.m. Morning watering gives the soil maximum time to absorb moisture before afternoon evaporation rates peak, and it allows the grass blades to dry out fully during the day. Grass blades that stay wet overnight are sitting in the optimal conditions for fungal disease development, particularly brown patch, which is the dominant fungal problem in July. Shifting all watering to morning hours removes one of the 3 environmental conditions that brown patch requires to spread. If your lawn enters full dormancy during a sustained heat wave, and you choose to let it ride out dormancy without supplemental water, that is a legitimate and often reasonable decision for a healthy, well-established lawn. A dormant lawn requires only about a ½ inch of water every 2 to 3 weeks to keep the crown tissue alive. The scenario to absolutely avoid is allowing the lawn to go dormant, withholding all water for 4 or more consecutive weeks, and then attempting to revive it with a heavy soak. That pattern places severe stress on crown tissue that has been sitting dry for an extended period and can result in permanent damage that does not recover with fall temperatures. Weeds in July are at the height of their competitive season, and the most significant of them for most American homeowners is crabgrass. Crabgrass is a warm season annual that germinates when soil temperatures reach 55 degrees Fahrenheit and grows aggressively through the heat of summer. By July, any crabgrass in your lawn has moved well past the stage where pre-emergent products can address it, and you are dealing with established plants. Post-emergent herbicides formulated specifically for crabgrass are effective on young plants that have produced 4 tillers or fewer, and less effective as the plant matures. If you can identify young crabgrass plants in July, a targeted post-emergent application during a cooler morning below 85 degrees Fahrenheit is worth making. Mature crabgrass plants that have moved beyond that treatment window are best left until the first frost kills them, after which the bare spots they leave behind become your September overseeding targets. Broadleaf weeds including dandelions, plantain, and clover remain present through July but require careful handling in summer heat. Most selective broadleaf herbicide labels carry temperature restrictions between 85 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Applying above those thresholds reduces absorption by the target weeds, increases the chance of product volatilization before it can be taken up through the leaf, and carries a real risk of phytotoxic stress to nearby turf that is already heat-challenged. If broadleaf weed treatment is necessary in July, choose a morning below 85 degrees and apply as a targeted spot treatment to individual plants rather than broadcasting across the full lawn. The most effective weed suppression in July requires no product at all. Maintaining your cool season lawn at 4 inches or above creates a dense canopy that blocks the light most weed seeds require for germination, delivering passive suppression that outperforms any chemical program applied to thin or short turf. Two specific problems reach peak impact on cool season lawns in July, and catching both of them while they are still in early stages changes how much work you have to do in September. White grubs, primarily the larvae of Japanese beetles and masked chafer beetles, hatch from eggs laid in the soil in late June and early July and immediately begin feeding on grass roots just below the soil surface. In their early larval stage through mid-July, they are small, shallow, and at their most vulnerable to treatment. Biological nematode treatments using Heterohabditis bacteriophora applied to moist soil and watered in immediately after application are effective against Japanese beetle grubs during this window. Chemical controls containing chlorantraniliprole or imidacloprid are most effective when applied in early to mid-July before or during the peak hatch window across most of the northern United States. Visible signs of grub damage are irregular patches of grass that pull up from the soil without resistance, detaching from the surface like a loose piece of sod with no root system holding it in place. Wildlife activity including skunks and raccoons digging into the turf at night is also a reliable indicator of grub presence. Brown patch is the fungal disease that most frequently appears on July lawns across humid regions of the country. It shows up as roughly circular patches of brown or straw-colored grass ranging from a few inches to several feet across, often with a darker, water-soaked ring visible at the outer edge of the affected area during early morning hours before the dew dries. Brown patch develops when nighttime temperatures stay above 70 degrees Fahrenheit and grass blades remain wet for extended periods. Switching all irrigation to early morning hours eliminates the nighttime leaf wetness that the disease needs to spread. Avoiding nitrogen fertilizer during peak summer also removes one of the conditions that makes turf more susceptible. Fungicide products containing azoxystrobin or propiconazole are effective against brown patch and perform best when applied at the first sign of spreading rather than after the disease has already developed into large established patches. July is not a renovation month, and understanding which tasks do not belong in summer prevents a significant amount of avoidable damage. Dethatching or power raking a cool season lawn in July strips away the organic layer at the soil surface that insulates roots from heat, removes plant material the lawn cannot replace while growing slowly under thermal stress, and creates a recovery demand the grass has no capacity to meet at peak summer temperatures. Every lawn care resource that recommends dethatching points to early fall as the appropriate timing for cool season turf. Core aeration on a cool season lawn in July creates the same type of problem from a different direction. Pulling soil cores opens hundreds of small channels in the turf that accelerate moisture evaporation from the root zone and expose the soil directly to high surface temperatures. On a lawn already managing heat and possible moisture stress, core aeration in July consistently worsens drought damage rather than relieving it. Schedule core aeration for late August or early September for cool season lawns. Overseeding belongs in September as well. Cool season grass seed germinates most successfully when soil temperatures at the 2-inch depth sit between 50 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit. July soil temperatures in most of the country are well above that upper threshold, and seed sown in July will either fail to germinate or produce seedlings too fragile to survive contact with summer soil conditions. Attempting to repair bare areas or thicken thin sections in July produces poor germination rates and wastes seed that would return much better results 6 to 8 weeks later. The final 2 weeks of July are a setup window for fall, and taking a few specific actions during this period makes September renovations significantly more productive. Walk your full lawn in late July and identify every area that has thinned, developed bare patches, or browned beyond what looks like typical dormancy. Some of that browning is the normal semi-dormant response to summer heat, and will green up on its own when temperatures drop. Other areas have underlying causes, including grub damage, compaction, disease, or shade from trees that have reached full canopy, and those spots need targeted responses in the fall rather than simply more seed scattered over unaddressed problems. Documenting the location of those problem areas while the damage is visible prevents you from overlooking them once the lawn greens up in September and the damage temporarily masks itself. Areas along driveways, sidewalk edges, and building foundations consistently dry out faster than the main lawn body because adjacent hard surfaces absorb heat during the day and radiate it back into the bordering soil at night. A thin application of fine compost worked into the soil surface along those edges in late July helps increase the moisture-holding capacity of those strips going into the second half of summer. This is a soil amendment, not a fertilizer, and the difference matters. The microbial activity that breaks down the compost during August conditions the soil at those edges for better performance during fall overseeding. If core aeration and overseeding are on your fall plan, which they should be for any lawn that struggled through the summer, contact aeration services or rental companies now to schedule your early September appointment. September is consistently the busiest month for lawn services across the country, and waiting until September to start planning results in delays that push work into October when soil temperatures are already dropping. Request a soil test now from your state cooperative extension service. A sample collected in late July delivers results in 2 to 3 weeks, giving you exact pH and nutrient data in hand before fall work begins, so you apply the right amendments to the right areas rather than guessing. That is your complete July lawn care plan. Raise your mowing height to between 3.5 and 4.5 inches and reduce your mowing frequency as growth naturally slows. Hold all nitrogen fertilizer applications until September if you are managing a cool season lawn. Water deeply 2 to 3 times per week in early morning rather than in small daily amounts. Handle weed treatments carefully and keep herbicide applications below 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Watch for early signs of grub activity and brown patch and respond while treatment is still effective. Skip dethatching, aeration, and overseeding until temperatures drop in late August. And use the final 2 weeks of July to document problem areas and lock in your fall service schedule before availability fills up. Every one of those steps is grounded in what your grass is actually doing this month and what it needs from you right now to come through summer without lasting damage. By the way, what I just covered is just the surface. In the ebook, I break this down way more, with an exact month-by-month schedule based on your grass type. You can order it right now using the link in the description below. If this video helped you, please hit the like button and share it with a neighbor or friend who is watching their lawn struggle through summer and does not know why. Subscribe to the channel if you are not already, because we cover practical and detailed lawn and garden topics throughout the year with no filler.